Good evening. My name is Aborajith. I am a graduate student here at the University of South Dakota, and I am doing a presentation which is titled Insights on Effective Communication, the Perspective of a Residential Therapist. So, this presentation is a summary of an interview that I conducted with the residential therapist and unit director at my organization called Children's Home Society in Sioux Falls. The director's name is Caitlin Beldrin, and she holds a very valuable role here at the Children's Home Society. The purpose of this discussion is to gain valuable insight into the challenges faced by individuals in managerial positions like Caitlin, and to explore how their experiences related to the key concepts that we've discussed in this class, such as effective communication and leadership. So, um, a little bit more about the interviewee. So, Caitlin has a master's in administration. She's a she's a nationally certified counselor, and she's a licensed mental health counselor as well. Um, and so her role here, as I had mentioned, she's a residential therapist, and she recently just got unit director. So she has extensive experience in managerial roles. She demonstrates exceptional leadership skills. She is a phenomenal woman. I am impressed with her worth ethic and professional manner, her transparency with her team. It is such an honor to be able to have her conduct or be able to have her be in this interview um, because based on her schedule, I didn't know if she was going to accept the offer, but she did, and I'm so glad that she did because I learned a lot of valuable information from her. Um, so, with her background in mental health services, it equips her to understand the team dynamic and client needs, enabling her to foster a supportive and effective work environment. And her communication is out of this world. Like, for someone who has so much on her plate, I'm very, very impressed at the timing and the efficiency of her responses. She um she's committed to helping her team grow and having professional development, and I am truly thankful to be working under her because she is in valuable asset to the organization. So with the interview, I had asked her 8 questions, and based on the 8 questions, I was able to compartmentalize them into four key themes. So the first theme would be communication culture. Second theme, the impact of emotional intelligence. Third theme, miscommunication management. And fourth, encouraging constructive dialogue. So, with the first theme, communication culture, a little subheading or subtitle that I chose as an answer, as a overall well-rounded answer to the questions that I asked would be fostering openness and inclusivity in team dialogue. So, for the 2 questions that I had asked her that fit this theme, would be what strategies do you use to foster open communication within your team? And how can managers create an inclusive communication environment that encourages feedback from all team members, regardless of their position? So, with the first question, her response was using active listening, creating a non-judgmental space, being open to feedback, and having transparency, which are all strategies that I have seen or I have witnessed firsthand that she actually does utilize um, for her team, um, which is very helpful and beneficial for her team to continue to grow and work towards the organizational goal and mission. Um, she says it is important that everyone is heard and seen and understands to create trust and openness, especially within a residential treatment where burnout is very common, as well as high retention rates. Um, just having these strategies of team building really puts the team in a better mindset. Um, and it's truly a blessing. So then, with the second question on inclusive communication, um, this one, her response was actually very, very lengthy, which I really appreciated because at our facility, we had just gone through our annual or our quarterly employee engagement, um, where each unit, um, where each unit is surveyed, and then there are organizational questions along with that. And so this one was actually perfect because we had just gone through things that our unit could work on, and inclusivity was kind of part of that. And so one of the largest contributors to team success is resilience and peer support. Those were the two necessary components that she had mentioned. She thinks that, managers are supposed to be providing for their team, providing opportunities for peer support among all team members because there is no I in team. And goes along with promoting open communication and acting on the feedback that they receive. So it's one thing to say you're going to do something, but if you're actively working towards bettering or making a change, um, it means a lot to your team because they know that you're not just saying it just to say it. Caitlin had mentioned in her current role as a residential therapist and unit director, she um, does, team meetings. So we have team meetings every Wednesday. She does one-on-one meetings with each staff member. The staff surveys are very helpful for her, so she knows what improvements are needed on her unit. And we have transparency from herself. So she believes that her willingness to make mistakes and acknowledge her mistakes give her team an opportunity to do the same thing, which I fully agree on. Um, if you think about it, it's a lot easier to accept someone who is very transparent about their mistakes as opposed to someone who is prideful and doesn't want to acknowledge that they made any mistakes. Additionally to that, she talked a lot about being able to model the behaviors that she wants her team to be doing. Because if if she's actively listening and if she's open to making changes and if she's facilitating change, it's going to give her team that backbone or that foundation to be willing to also do changes as well. So, based on that, I had some connections to the readings, um, specifically chapter 2 and 4. So, with chapter 2, understanding the managerial communication process, it talked a lot about trust, openness, and communication as a reciprocal relationship. No one is without the other. And I think that's really nice because obviously if you can trust um your teammates are a little bit more vulnerable and willing to open up about anything positive or negative. And then it'll boost employee morale and the communication. It also improves the job improvement, and in turn, future communication will get easier because the trust and openness have already been developed. And usually that's nice to see from the leader or the individual in the managerial position. Um, Likewise, chapter 4 talks about managing meetings and teams, which I also thought was nice because we have annual meetings and weekly meetings at our facility. So, Velsos and Hines expanded on the idea that managers use meetings for several functions, information sharing, they find facts, solve problems, make decisions, and coordinate tasks. Um, and I can say these are things that I have seen Caitlin do firsthand. Um, and so even when we have meetings, we have an agenda that has the foundation or the layout of what we're going to talk about in the meeting. So she is very organized, and which kind of shows why she is a very good leader. And then also in chapter 4, they had the subheadings of strategic considerations um, or improvements that could happen. And I saw this quote and I decided to add it into my presentation. It is, a team should reflect the people the problem affects, following the principle, nothing about us without us. I really like that because the people, meaning the staff, we have people that we support, the children that we support, and so if we can, and a lot of the improvements that need to happen are for the kids, and so if we are able to identify the problems within our team, it'll allow us to better serve the population that we take care of. And then on the right hand side is a quote that I remember from uh, the interview with Caitlin. And she goes, I am a large supporter of modeling the behaviors you would like to see from others. Managers can support feedback from individuals in all positions by being willing to receive feedback and through the acknowledgement that every position is vital to the function of the organization. So going back, I like to think of this as monkey see, monkey do, where, the leader is doing specific tasks and roles and responsibilities, um, and in turn, that will give the team members that motivation and that foundation to also take on those responsibilities. Um, the second key theme is the impact of emotional intelligence. Um, so enhancing managerial communication through emotional awareness. The question that I had for this was, what role does emotional intelligence play in effective managerial communication? So from her therapeutic point of view, she says emotional intelligence plays a crucial role in effective managerial communication by having a sense of awareness, empathy, and emotional regulation. We work with a lot of kids that have adverse children or adverse child experiences, and they don't always know how to regulate their own emotions. And so if we have the resources and the tools to be able to use that within ourselves, we can better serve the kids and help them through that as well. Um, so, having these skills helps managers to understand their emotions and emotions of others. Um, And then obviously this helps foster clear communication that builds trust, understanding, and a safe work environment. So based on the reading on how to address workplace incivility, chapter 13 and chapter 13, 4, and 14 were my main target points. So with 13 on managing conflict, um, there was a um, discussion on, the book of emotional intelligence by Daniel Goldman, and it gave, six um, non-cognitive competencies that people that are starting, it's like a starting point on how to teach emotional management. Um, so from what I remember, it was, becoming self-aware and managing emotions and controlling your impulses, setting goals and performing well, being motivated and creative, um, emphasizing with others, handling relationships effectively, and developing appropriate social skills. Um, and those all seem pretty solid to me. And these are little things that I have seen at my organization, and some of these things are things that Caitlin had brought up as well. Likewise, um, Caitlin actually said this word for word. She went on to say, conflict in the workplace can be constructive as well as destructive. And we were mainly speaking on constructive criticism and how some people aren't really receptive to that. And then that typically causes tension within um, the team. And so being able to work through that and be acceptant or open-minded to new ideas and perspectives from teams helps the team um, go through those challenges and work through them. Chapter 4 on managing meetings and teams. There was a 6-step rational problem-solving process that I thought was actually really nice when we're talking about workplace conflict. So obviously the first step is to identify that problem. Second would be analyzing that problem. What specific areas are we seeing this problem at? Third is brainstorming the possible solution. So how can we solve this? 4 is determining the criteria that must be met to eliminate the problem. So we're not only just going to find a temporary solution, we're going to get rid of this problem. 5 would be selecting the best solution out of the brainstorming list. And 6 is actually implementing that. I think usually, Caitlin made a good point, is that usually when it comes to solving a problem, some managers tend to be brought up to the idea that, hey, there's an issue going on, but then it never really reaches the solving problem. It kind of just gets in the air because people stop talking about it. And so I thought this 6-step rational problem solving process was a good addition to that statement that she had made. And then chapter 14 on negotiation. A good quote that I got was, negotiating strategically means thinking long term and building networks. Um, you know, being able to do the organizational mission and values takes a long time, especially when you're going through all these changes and you want to see if they are actually effective to your organization. It's going to take a little bit, but being able to negotiate is also some can be a good thing. 5 strategies to resolve conflict would be, avoiding, accommodating, forcing, compromising, and problem solving. The subtitles are, win-lose or lose-lose. And these So the first five, avoiding, accommodating, forcing, and compromising, the first four, apologies, are termed win-lose or lose-lose because one or both parties in the conflict will lose. And then the fifth one is a win-win, and that's, the one that obviously most organizations want to do. But that kind of goes into play with the negotiation part. You're not always going to win, but there might be some possibilities that you're not always going to lose as well. A nice little quote that Caitlin had shared with me is, if we manage conflict constructively, we harness its energy for creativity and development. And I thought that was a nice little um, well-rounded quote to end that part of the discussion, or that part of the questions that we had. 3 is miscommunication management, resolving conflicts and misunderstandings while embracing diverse perspectives. So the 2 questions I had here was, how do you handle a situation where there is a miscommunication or misunderstanding among team members? What steps do you take to resolve it? So Caitlin pretty much had a very straightforward answer with this. She was like, I prefer to go directly to that team member and ask for understanding and clarification and see if we can find a solution. With me personally, there have been situations where she will just come to me directly and share her concerns, and then we find a solution together, which is very nice. Because we have built that trust and openness with each other. Next question is, how do you encourage and handle dissenting opinions in team discussions while maintaining a constructive atmosphere? So for this, I recall her saying, from the therapeutic perspective, creating an environment that promotes safety for differing opinions is essential. It is a necessity for organizations, because when individuals feel safe to express their thoughts and ideas, amazing things can happen with just that. So one way to do this is, so she had given me examples, and she said, like, one way to do this is giving everyone the opportunity to express their views and give the reason why behind them. We live in a very why centered area, so people like to know, okay, so I'm doing this, but like, what's the reason? Like, why am I doing that? It kind of gives that motivation. And so when individuals understand the why, Caitlin had found that others are more open and a little bit more vulnerable, because because at the end of the day, everyone wants to be heard and validated. And I thought that response that she had given was beautifully said, and it was a perfect response in some situations that we had spoken about, which is too long for this presentation, but I had seen those working under her. So effective approaches, and this is mainly within my unit that I see. So starting with, connection, we're creating opportunities to establish rapport with employees. And by we, I mean Caitlin. And this is more on the perspective of like me under her, me as a residential youth counselor under the unit director or under the residential therapist. Next one is to find the right balance of group and individual meetings, so that it's either the annual meetings that we have or the one-on-one. And then encouraging open feedback channels by fostering an environment where employees feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and suggestions. It kind of gives that, two-way dialogue, and that straightens only strengthens our relationship and builds trust. Next would be documentation. So, having documentation protocols and a team handbook easily accessible um, allows, the team not to feel lost. We all have shared text documents where we put in, direct reports and documentation, and then the agenda that I had mentioned earlier, that helps organize the meetings that she facilitates. And then last thing would be engagement we have the employee engagement surveys, we have employee growth and development specialists here on the unit, team building activities, and volunteer services. I just put these in, little categories of things that Caitlin has done for our unit um, when there were times of conflict. And then the last theme that I have is encouraging constructive dialogue, reinforcing goals and values through balanced communication. So the three questions that I had asked her was, in what ways do you leverage communication to reinforce your team's goals and values during challenging times? And she had talked about along the lines of the mission of the organization. So when challenging times occur, the reason or mission is often forgotten about. And then she, suggested, giving simple reminders through conversation or actions can help create a pause to regroup. Because I know for myself, it can be easy to get caught up to day-to-day task and forget the reason for the task in the first place. So conversations about the mission and the why can re-energize individuals to focus on the goals and or values in place. Um, the next question is, how do you tailor your communication for different stakeholders, such as, team members, executives, the clients? And so she had said, she kind of talks to the different she has different communication styles for each of these individuals. So she won't have the same like conversations with her coworkers that she'll have with her executives, because there's just like a professional boundary there. But she ultimately was like, I do what's comfortable for myself and my teammates, and I speak in a respectful manner for the clients, aka the children that we work with. We kind of keep our communication, or she keeps communication child size and appropriate, and keeps the focus on that. And then the last question that I asked was, how can managers effectively balance transparency and confidentiality in their communication with employees? And this one was another great question, and she had a really great response with it. She had said that she believes that transparency and confidentiality are just that, a balance. So she believes that being clear is kind, and in being clear about the information one can share with you, um, to then build trust with your team members. Um, so that essentially means like there are times that a manager will have to share that they cannot provide an employee with the information that they're seeking, and stand firm in their need to stay confidential. And we live at a residential facility where she won't be able to mix being a residential therapist and being a unit director. There are just some boundaries that can't be crossed. But she does believe that the balance comes from an internal calling to do not harm. So if she's trying to ensure no harm to the employees, then she will be transparent when necessary and maintain confidentiality when called to do so. So then that obviously ensures that she's handling all forms of communication in a safe and professional manner, which is wonderful. That keeps the kids safe, the employees safe, and ultimately the organization. And then here, in a little bit connection, which we kind of talked about a little bit, the communication situation. We have the sender who's giving out the information, the receiver who gets the information, and the purpose of the message. Um, Making sure that communication is a one-way flow, um, and having that nice chain of command kind of helps avoid confusion, and ensures that everyone's on the same page. And then cultural competency was another one. We have a very diverse workplace, and so being competent in different cultures by having the, diversity, equity, inclusion committee or the employee in survey engagements really help um, give that diverse perspective. So, as a summary, we had talked about the four key themes: communication culture, the impact of emotional intelligence, miscommunication management, and encouraging constructive dialogue. Um, with Caitlin, I truly, truly appreciate her being with this presentation. Her work for her team reflect her strong leadership skills, unwavering dedication, and ability to foster collaboration, which ultimately drive the team towards achieving its goals and enhancing overall performance.